Up, everybody? It's me, Willie Paul. I'm here with Pastor Brandon. How's everything going?
Woo! Excited.
Awesome. Hey, we just had our ninth anniversary, which means we are 9 years and a few days old now as Metro. And we
Yeah.
went back to two in-person services. How was the after? You had like only online and then one in-person service. Going back to two, how were you after?
I was actually pretty good. What's funny is we used to do four Saturday night and then three on Sunday.
Yeah.
And then we went down to one, which is still even a miracle because of the pandemic. And after one, we were kind of tired thinking, how did we do three more after this? But, I was actually doing pretty good. Like going home, ate some lunch, hang out with the family. It was good. You know what's cool about two services really was seeing all the people that we haven't seen in a long time coming into in-person service. But then also seeing that we have a lot of space so people can come and feel safe. In light of the pandemic, people wearing masks and distancing and hand sanitizer and feeling good about that. But even better is while we used to have one service before this past weekend, we had about maybe 120, 130 people. For two services, we had more than 200 people split over the two of them. So it was cool to see that our attendance increased in person. And then online, a lot of people were still joining us online, like many of you who are listening or watching do anyway. So I
Yeah.
think it was really cool to see some people wanting to stay home and still participate and engage with what's going on here, and others saying it's time to come back to in-person service. So, wherever you as a listener or viewer might be in that whole process, like we're just excited that you're engaging with what God's doing at Metro. So I think the two services was pretty cool.
Yeah, I
More
think it was cool.
opportunities.
Even though attendance went up, there's more space.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we didn't try to like re-slice the pie to like to figure out how to get more people, like squeeze more people, and we're just like open up. And so now, even though we have more people, there's more space and it feels safer.
Yeah, I really like that. It was good. It was a good vibe, good feel. And then after we're done with service, we can talk with people outside after it's done. So it was a really good weekend, man.
Yeah, I was doing some online moderation, so I didn't get to use that little Ghostbuster defogger sanitizer thing. So pretty
Yeah.
bummed about that.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. So between services, we usher everyone out of the service after the 8 o'clock so that our facilities team can disinfect and sanitize the sanctuary with the fogger. We have a solution there that is antibacterial, kills everything, prepares everything to be safe for at 10 o'clock. So I like that we're taking precautions for people to be here, and yet people are also feeling comfortable being an in-person service. So it was pretty cool. But what's the most fun was celebrating 9 years. I think that was the best part of the whole weekend,
Yeah,
seeing all that happening. So
that was awesome. If you saw the service, there was like the slideshow of the past 9 years while the worship team played, and during the first like half of the slideshow, I was like, I don't even know half these people, but I'm getting all emotional. It was really cool just to see God's faithfulness and his hand on
yeah.
the church and just through our history. So I wanted to ask, do you have a favorite Metro memory that you didn't get to talk about that you wish you had more time?
It's kind of hard to pick a favorite memory, but there are definitely highlights and high points that we just don't have the time to get into, both in service and right now on the podcast. But things like when we used to do Metro at the beach with baptism and play volleyball into the night and take over an area of Magic Island, and just spend time as a church family doing stuff like that. All that kind of stuff where we would gather people. I guess maybe because of the year that we've just come through where we haven't been able to do that, stuff like doing the Kalihi parade and seeing people get involved that way, or getting involved with the Farrington football team and the life of what's happening here in the community. Really, really cool things.
Mm-hmm.
But it always boils down to change lives. Because if it doesn't, then it's all just for fun. But I think some of the best memories that we have are stuff that is fun, but also things like in-person baptism or in service. So if you saw the slideshow, there's different pictures of people as they get baptized, and you see the joy that they have to declare their faith in front of the church community. It was really, really cool to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, those are some of my favorite memories too, is when we would do the baptisms. I did have another question though. I was watching the slideshow. I've seen a little bit of the history of Metro. What was long hair Brandon like?
Oh man, he did a lot of this. Yeah, since then my shampoo budget has gone way down, so that's kind of nice. Save some money.
Nice. Yeah.
So
I was like, whoa, dang, Brandon did used to have really long hair.
hey, Willie, I've seen some old pictures of you too. So I mean, let's just get on the same page here. Maybe we can splice in a picture of high school Willie, like
Yeah, man, that was high
probably around the
school.
same time as long hair Brandon.
You're actually probably right. We probably had long hair at the same time together. We just didn't know it.
Yeah.
Well, man, I know that we went through some of the history of Metro with Pastor Owen getting sick, being diagnosed with cancer like basically as soon as Metro started.
Yeah.
And how that and we were in a staff meeting as the church, and we were just talking about you were just talking about like leading through that moment and just showing some vulnerability, and like not just the okay, we're gonna get through this, but just like the dark lonely nights of like how are we gonna get through this.
Yeah.
And I think that's just such a testament to the blessing that God has. I mean, I shared in the meeting, like coming in to Metro pretty recently, and hearing all of the stories of Pastor Owen, and apparently this whole back office was flooded at one point, and there was a picture of you ripping up carpet with your "I'm so over this and I want to go home" face. um, but honestly, sometimes when we talk about the history of Metro, I think like, man, how are we still here? Like how are we still together?
Yeah.
How are we still like thriving? And it's just like, man, God has been so good to our
Yeah,
church.
it's not like everything is smooth sailing from day one, right? Like we've been through storm upon storm, and God has been faithful to our church, that we're still here and we're also still accomplishing the mission that He set us out to do. So, that thing that we talked about this past weekend about how we galvanized, we came together, and God was good to us, has a lot of weight to it. I think about that blacksmith metaphor that was shared, how a
Mm,
blacksmith makes a sword, heats up that metal, and then when it gets to this point where the metal is glowing red, it's ready to be hammered into shape. And I think God was continuing to shape us back then as He does now. And through that's continual process of heating and hammering, He's shaping us to who He wants us to be,
mm-hmm.
and how we can be used by Him. And the good news is that the process isn't done. It is not just as an organization or a church, but even personally as people. God continues to heat and hammer us till we look more like Jesus. And that's kind of the whole heart of this, is how do we allow God to change us so that we can live more like Jesus?
Yeah, and I like that we can look back and see, okay, God was throwing us in the fire, and then He was hammering us out, but at the end we were in a better shape than we were before. And I like that
Yeah.
because now when we're in the fire, or when we feel like God is hammering us into a different shape, it's like you can kind of take a breath, and it's like, okay, I know that this is not like fun. I know this isn't ideal, but I know that in the end, it's going to bring me to where to look more like how God wants me to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that, like you were just mentioned, that continual process where it's not, okay, I'm perfect. Like, wow, I did it. You wake up one morning and you're just like float out of bed.
Yeah. And you've arrived. Like
Yeah.
it's this continual process of being, as the Bible says, conformed to the image of His Son. And as God starts to shape us more like Jesus and strips away the us part of it, you see it come out in people, and you see it come out in our lives. Like when we don't respond to something the way that we used to, or the way that we resist temptation more than we used to. And it's a continual process of positive change that
Mm.
God does within us. And sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, but still, God is in the process of moving us forward as we allow Him to do so.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. Speaking of positive change, one of the big things that you said for the vision of the church moving forward. So we celebrate the past 9 years, we celebrate all that God has done, but then we also like look forward to what God is going to
Yeah.
do. And part of that was you shared some of the vision of we want people changed by Jesus, living like Jesus.
Yeah.
So could you just define changed by Jesus?
Well, this phrase wasn't just thrown out to be a big idea for this weekend. It really was meant to be a directional idea for where we're going as a church. Is that
Mm,
when we try to define what is the most important thing that we can do, what we said was we want everything that we do as a church to help people to be changed by Jesus so they can live like Jesus. That's the end product, if you will. That's the bottom line for us.
mm,
We could get busy doing a lot of different things, ministries and connect groups and programs. But if we're not helping people to be changed by Jesus so they can live like him, then we're not really doing what we're supposed to be doing. So I like that this phrase actually helps us to focus our efforts in an area. Otherwise, we just kind of get stuck doing the same things because we've always done them.
yeah.
We're going to be getting into a sermon series soon about this idea of how Jesus changes us. I'm excited about that. And it'll be pretty cool to see as we look through the Bible how people's lives have been changed by Jesus. And then also we see that in a modern way too. I
Mm,
think when we look at the way that we do things, so our worship services, our sermons, our connect groups, they should align so that people's hearts and lives can be engaged so that we are open to being changed by God himself. And when that happens, as we said a little earlier in this podcast, is the proof is that our lives start to reflect Jesus so we live like him.
hmm Um, what do you think? What do you think? Like, because we've been having this discussion about like where do we go? What is being changed? What does living like Jesus look like? What is like the win for the ministries and all of that? So, do you think this is kind of the idea that we've gone back and forth with? Is do you think changed by Jesus is just salvation, and then you move on to living like Jesus?
Yeah. So it's really the question is this like a one-time occurrence or is it a continual process? And I really think the answer is that it's a continual process where God continues to change us. So we are being changed by Jesus so that we might strive to continue to look like Jesus.
Mm,
Salvation, when we said yes to Christ, when we accepted him into our hearts, or however we want to phrase that, when we believed in him and all this kind of stuff, that's like the starting point. It's almost like the wedding day, if you will. It's the
mm,
beginning. And then from there, it's a continual process in a romantic sense of falling in love, like with our spouse and continuing to do that, right? So then we live like married people, if you will, not like single people, like how we used to live. Going back to this idea from the metaphor to the reality of being changed by Jesus, it's not just a one time occurrence per se, but when you did raise your hand or accepted him into your heart or said the prayer or whatever it is for you that you accepted Christ as your savior, that was almost like the inception of it. And then growing from there is to continually allow your life to be changed by Jesus.
mm,
So when we're challenged with issues of integrity, will I choose the right thing or the wrong thing, or issues of temptation, or issues of humility or ego or anything like that, then we can choose to live like how Jesus would. So this is, as I mentioned in the weekend service, these are different examples of, let's say there's a financial issue where you can choose to be integrous and tell the truth, even if it costs you, or you can hide the truth and then keep more of the funds that you would have to give if the truth came out instead. And you
mm,
choose that, right? If you've been changed by Jesus, then you would choose the integrous route. This is if you are being sexually tempted, whether single or married or anything. It's choosing the path of purity because you believe God blesses that instead of the instant gratification of whatever that temptation might look like. And it's choosing to live like how Jesus would, submitted and surrendered to the Father's will. This is the parent at home who's overwhelmed because their kid is at home and for whatever reason they're driving them nuts. And instead of blowing up and being harsh with them, it's being patient with them and speaking kindly to them and saying, Alana, daddy's really upset right now, but hypothetically speaking, that's not like
hypothetical,
it's me at
hypothetical,
all, right?
hypothetical.
Hypothetical.
Of course.
But it's all these examples. It's when your spouse makes when you make your spouse dinner and you're like, how is it, honey? And they say, needs salt. And you don't get all salty and you don't living like Jesus. And you don't also say, well, you are the salt of the earth, so put your finger in it. Like nothing like that. It's it's being patient and kind, and it's how Christ would live. And it goes beyond just being religious or being nice, because there's a lot of nice people in the world that aren't living like Jesus because they're just trying to be nice. But rather it's saying, I'm going to act and live how Jesus would because I've been changed by him. That's the whole heart of this idea of when Christ changes your life, you can't help but want to live more like him.
Mm. So how do we how does one say you're just new to church, new to following Jesus, you've just uh, said yes to Jesus, you're saved. How does one find out what the next steps are to live more like Jesus?
That's a great question. And that's what we're doing right now as a church, is clarifying what those next steps look like to help you on your path. You're going to be hearing real soon about ABC discipleship. It's a pathway that we're developing here that helps people, no matter where you are, whether you believe in God or you think that he's fake, but there's a way for you to take a step forward in your faith journey. A stands for Alpha. Alpha is a class you're going to be hearing about for people that are seeking and or even asking questions about God. B is Bible basics, so getting into the basics of our faith. What do we really believe and why do we believe it? And then C is Connect. It's our Connect course that we're developing. You'll be hearing about this in the next couple of months. Connect is, what does it mean to be a member at Metro? So these things help us take a step further and forward into where we're at in our journey with Christ. But if you're someone who's just said yes to Jesus and you don't know where to start, a good place to start is just getting into the Bible. We follow a Bible reading plan here. It's called Bible in 1 Year. It's hard to be more like Jesus if you don't know how Jesus was. So getting into the Bible and reading more about him, what he said, how he interacted with people, the heart that he had for people. I think those things are really important. So we get to know this example that is set for us. So we can be more like that and strive to be more like it. I think in sports, up and coming people that are looking to get better at their sport would watch tapes of people that are really good. So young basketball players might watch Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or people like that because I want to be like that. I think because of that, we have examples of what to be like. And I think for people who are trying to follow Christ, it's get to know Jesus even more. So you know who you're following and what his mannerisms and temperament was like, how he responded to people in situations. So Bible in 1 Year is a great place to start. And everything that I just talked about is available on our website that we just relaunched, a brand new webpage. You can check us out at metrochristianchurch.com.
Yeah. Pastor Brandon, you and your wife Kara were huge in making that website happen, and it's super nice. So thanks for that. Our website is now super cool and very useful. There's also
it's trying to be more functional. Yeah.
There's also that's a spiritual growth chart.
Whoa, you mean that?
Whoa. The spiritual growth chart is something that Metro has that's just like different quadrants where you can like just grow in your faith. So if you're looking for something to work on, just pull up the spiritual growth chart, see which one needs work, and then get to work on it. I also really like what you said about learning. Like if you want to be like Jesus, you have to learn about Jesus and how he acted, because there's so many like cultural Jesus versus like biblical Jesus, where like growing up, the whole like God helps those who help themselves. Like I thought that was in the Bible. It turns out that was like Ben Franklin or something said that. And so like reading the actual words and teachings of Jesus is really, really crucial to making us look more like Jesus. Pastor Brandon, that was for people who maybe are just starting. But what about people who have been in church for a while? They're serving, they're involved, they feel like they're pretty far along, but maybe they feel like they're plateauing. How would you suggest like shake things up, get them out of the rut, get out of the plateau?
I think it's this process of continual growth. And I think what you said is true. Sometimes we get either complacent on purpose, or it just happens to us where we do plateau in our faith and things are kind of the same. I think God allows us to go through seasons of good and bad, and also times of neutral. And really, it's to press us more into seeking him. So when we realize that there is no hunger for the things of God, then it's a time for us to humble ourselves. And that's when times of fasting and prayer are really important. We just finished 21 days of fasting and prayer as a denomination at Foursquare. And this idea of fasting is, I wouldn't say starving the body per se, but it's taking something out in your life, whether it's a hobby or something that brings you comfort or solace, whether it's alcohol or coffee or even food for different times. But the whole purpose is to focus our minds and our hearts on the things of God. And I've noticed that for me, when I fasted food, it's been a prayer of God, make me hungrier for you. And it's a desire where it drives us further into the Lord. So going back to this concept of continual change,
Mm,
people who have been continually changed by Jesus so they can continually live like him. It's, I think, a question that, as believers, if you've been in the church for a while, that we must answer is, am I allowing God to change me even right now? Am I
mm.
allowing God to challenge my thoughts, my heart, my priorities, my desires? Do I reflect the values of the kingdom of God or the values of this earth? But as you mentioned, Willie, in the spiritual growth chart, one of the things that we don't always talk about with the spiritual growth chart is that last column. The last column talks about building disciples. And really, when you think about it, when you look at the spiritual growth chart here, this concept on this greens column is, are you serving others? Are you connecting people to God? Are you serving others? Are you living with people around you in your workplace, your neighborhood, as if you were a missionary to show Jesus? Or are you always just upset about something and want to talk to the manager? Or are you living like a missionary where you are trying to show people the love, grace, and mercy of Christ? And the last one is, are you making other disciples? Sometimes in the church, we get so used to church as something that serves and feeds me. And while it's true that it should, it's also the question of how are you contributing to what God is doing through your local church? And if Metro is your home church, and I'm assuming it is if you're listening to this podcast, our challenge to you pastoral is how are you making other disciples with those around you? If it's the people in your home, then what are ways that we can help you to do that? Because that's the era that we're entering, is how can we equip, help, train, give resources to people just like you at home to make disciples of those right around you, whether you call them your spouse, your children, anyone that's under your roof. But the last thing I'd say on this make other disciples thing is this is a big step when it comes to our spiritual growth, because it's one thing to know something and it's another thing to teach it, because to teach it, you have to know it. And
Mhm.
if you're going to teach it, you may not be preaching sermons or anything, but you could help in a small group or connect group. You could help with Metro Kids as they do online Zoom studies for youth as it's coming up, and kids and things like that. There's ways to make other disciples. I think some of the best examples that I've seen of this are when people that are growing in their faith take that next step to say, okay, I'm willing to help lead a connect group. They don't know all the answers to everything, but they're willing to be the host and eventually receive people and be the consistent lead there. And it helps this person who's agreed to be the lead to grow exponentially in his or her faith, because now they're being challenged and now they're also being able to help others who are in the middle of their lives.
Yeah. Um, man, making disciples and like, especially the people in your home, that's like one of the most awkward, uncomfortable things that you could do. But it is one of the most rewarding things that you could do. And so, like for parents, we have the Metro Kids on Sundays. We have Alive on Wednesdays. We have the YouTube for Alive and the Google Drive where there's videos and resources for you. I got to teach in Metro Kids this past weekend, and it was incredible. Like I was so tired because I got here like 6 a.m. I was like printing all this stuff because we were getting ready for service. And then I was like, yeah, man. And now I got to jump on and teach Metro Kids. And then I jumped on and I was just having so much fun. And then after I was like, I was so full. And it was just this reminder, like
Yeah.
from the lesson, I was like, it was teaching me too. And I taught the students how to do this. Ah. And we were all just like
Of
super
course you
stoked
did.
together. And it was just like, oh man, that's so filling. Um,
Yeah.
but just taking that step of like, you know what, it might be awkward, it might be a little uncomfortable, but I'm just gonna try it out. I'm gonna stick to it and then see what God is gonna do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah, it was really good. Super fun actually. I went home and I was like, man, that was so much fun. Like it was I'm gonna have like a 10-year-old teaching me how to play basketball pretty
Totally.
soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
But
I
Willie,
guarantee she's better than me at basketball.
that's probably true too.
Yeah.
But Willie, as we look at the ninth anniversary, we see where we've been. We look forward to where we're going. And a lot of where we're going is taking that phrase, people changed by Jesus, living like him, and starting to unpack or implement that into the ways that we've been doing ministry here at Metro. What I'm most excited about for the future is putting ministry in the hands of people. You heard us talk about in the weekend sermon the Home Depot model of you can do it, we can help. And we can put resources and methods and strategies into the hands of not only parents, but whether it's grandparents or singles or young adults or anybody, that you can be the one that is doing ministry right where you are. And I know that many of the people that are viewing or listening to us right now watch us also in our sermons online. They're not ready to come into service yet. And I love the fact in this new era of ministry, we can do that because we can help people who are listening right now through the ways that we have resources available. And all that's through our website. If we can do that, then we can be seeing ministry happen even more than before the pandemic hit in the first place. So it's a brand new area for us and opportunities. And it really just boils back down to the question of, are we helping people to be changed by Jesus so that they can live like him?
Yeah, amen. There are so many opportunities for you to get involved and for you to take hold and be changed by Jesus and continually live like Jesus. That's on our website right now. We have a connect group finder where if you've been wanting to be in a group, you can request based on like the time and the day that they meet. And a lot of it is so easy now because it all meets online. And so you don't have to like, oh, I gotta go sit in traffic to get there and leave like half an hour early. It's just like, as long as I can set an alarm for like 1 minute before and then just hop on the laptop and I'm ready to go.
Maybe 3 minutes.
But 3 minutes to kind of like get in the right mind space. But it's so easy to just be plugged in wherever you are. So head over to our website for more info. We also have some other cool things coming up, like Family First Friday, bow, bow, which I'm super excited about. So February 5th, it's a time for the whole family to come together. It's specially created for families to experience together with young kids. So I was looking through the script and all the games we're going to play and everything. Everything's going to be super safe, super thought out, and just a ton of fun. And it's not only fun, but you're learning about Jesus while you're having fun. And there's one game that I am so excited for. It's gonna be so good.
Oh man,
I don't want to spoil it, but it involves football and kindness.
I already like it.
I love it. Anyway,
it'll be a really good time.
It's going to be really good. So you can go to our website, scroll down a little bit, and there's like an upcoming events, and you can register right there. Super easy. So head over to metrochristianchurch.com for more info on anything that we talked about. And we'll see you next week on the Hana podcast.
Happy 9th anniversary, Metro.
Woo! Happy 9th anniversary, everybody. Shoots.